Yeah.
My favorite.
It's Judd's Hockey Show.
And welcome into Judd's Hockey Show. It is Judd. It is Jessi, Pierce, Bardown, Beauties, and also NHL.com. Covers the Wild and golfs a lot these days because that's what you do when your team's not in the playoffs. It's AJ Fredrickson. It is the Wednesday extravaganza. How are we all doing in the now that the Wild's been done for like 2 weeks and it feels like 2 months?
I'm living my best life. I don't know about you guys, but I'm out here golfing. I'm hanging out. I'm not having to put pants on half the days. I'm loving it. This is how I'm like though. Give me like 2 more weeks and then I'm like, oh, I need some more Wild news. But I get to enjoy the playoffs from like an actual enjoyment standpoint too. The anxiety is at a very, a bare minimum. Yep. I'm living I love it. Love every minute of it.
No pants though. Let's just be clear there. That means like sweatpants or shorts like me, right?
Yeah, generally speaking, yes. I mean, I might even toss jeans on. Yeah, my kids do not care for when I don't get quote unquote dressed. Like they see me when I go to hockey and they're like, "Wow, you're so pretty." And then when I don't get dressed, they're like, "Ugh, what's up with that?" Like true story. It's happened numerous times. Mostly the middle child, who is my arch nemesis.
Your kids are a rough crowd. Age, I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. I was going to say, I'm following suit. I do no pants too. The problem is though, I go into the office a lot. So Judd, you've seen me there. It creates a little bit of chaos for HR. So,
well, I do a lot of sweatpants. Like as long as it doesn't have a button, I'm fine. I do a lot of mesh shorts. I got the mesh shorts on right now. Very comfortable.
Good.
I do wear pants. I would not subject my poor wife or dog, Stella, to that. Okay, let's start with this. And I got this idea off of snarky X post or tweet put out by Jessi Pierce yesterday, but actually it leads to an interesting conversation. In watching these playoff games, and Washington obviously got swept by the Rangers. We could have a bunch of series potentially go, 5 or 6 games, but like we've had some really fun first round series. Dallas, Jessi's team, lost the first 2. She complained. They came back and won. So it's 2-2 now, but no one's won a home game yet. There are definitely some wars. Start with you, Jessi. What have you seen in these playoffs that you would either like to see or that probably more importantly you think you need to see from the Wild within the next couple of years to feel like they belong? Because I think we all agree, like we can't see the current incarnation of this team in these playoffs. Mm-hmm. They would just get shellacked. But like, what are some things that you've seen that you think, hey, if the Wild can take these steps, then they do belong, then they could potentially, who knows, win a series?
I mean, there's a lot, right? I don't think there's just one
The floor
thing,
is yours, yes.
But man alive, I think I tweeted that out where I said, the Wild just don't have this following. I want to say the Evan Rodriguez goal for Florida. I was watching the Florida-Tampa Bay series, and it's just those finishes. It's the speed and the finishes. We have a lot of pass-happy players, which I know we've talked about before on this show. We've addressed it to the Minnesota Wild. They know it. Matt Zuccarello acknowledged it. But you don't have... And Evan Rodriguez is not what I would consider an elite player by any stretch of the imagination, but he is that secondary scoring. He's that third, he's a guy that can go in there and get the job done. And I just looked at it and I was like, it felt so dramatically different than what I've witnessed for the Minnesota Wild all season long. Like just something about him, like he had this confidence. I know we talked with Bill Guerin about losing that swag. Maybe it's the swag that they're missing, but there's just something about finishing the shot and finishing the plays and completely going down and dominating. I think that was the thing that particularly stood out to me, is just missing that offensive capability. Yes, we have Kirill Kaprizov, but that's it. Like there's not anybody else that I'm super uber excited about or confident in going down. So I think that was it. Just all of these teams have that level of offensive capability that the Minnesota Wild, you just didn't see often enough this year, let alone really at all.
Yeah, and Rodriguez is a guy who was with Pittsburgh, and he's bounced around now. But the Avalanche picked him up last year, if I'm not mistaken, and now he's with the Panthers, and that's a perfect point. Like he is a great complementary piece on a good team.
Yeah.
Like he's the guy, like it feels like has signed here and they're like, oh, you can be perhaps on our first line. It's like, no, that's not really his role necessarily. But as a complimentary guy, he's played with great players and good teams. like that's to me some of the pieces of the puzzle here that are sorely lacking. Right now, I don't know if it would make sense, but there have definitely been Wild playoff teams where like you would have liked to have seen that. And that's the exact type of player that they haven't had. So I'm with you completely. Like, it's not like, oh my God, if we just had him, it would be great. But it is like, that's the type of player that you add who gives you seasoning. And it's a guy that knows what he's doing. And the moment is not too big.
And I would say the biggest thing that I want to see is, like, I've seen some of these games. It's teams that go wire to wire. Like, they start hot, they just come out of the gate, they're ahead of the pack. I mean, it's a bloodbath until that final buzzer. And I feel like this entire season we just watched, the Wild are not a team that can play a full 60 minutes. And that maybe that goes into like depth. You can't rely on that one line to carry you. And so maybe that seems like why they fall off late in games at times. I mean, how many third period leads did they blow? You know, going into that third period, that final 20 minutes, they just couldn't ever put a team away. And I mean, granted, we've seen that now in this series. I mean, who was it? Carolina, I think, came back from a 3-0 deficit in the first game to steal that first game against the Islanders, I want to say it was. It's that's my biggest thing that I've noticed, that these teams, at least there's some less competitive ones that are already out, but especially in that 4 grouping that you've seen where the Wild probably would end up, whether they're facing Colorado, they're facing Winnipeg, they're facing either a Dallas Stars or a Vegas Golden Knights team, those teams just go buzzer to buzzer, wire to wire. And if the Wild take their 5, 10, 20 minutes off like they typically have done most nights, they're going to get killed. They, like, to Jessi's point, I think a week ago, they're not winning a game, let alone maybe even scoring a goal. So that's my biggest concern.
Mm-hmm.
You know, you mentioned teams that were not competitive. I think I looked at the entire playoffs at the beginning and looked at Washington, right? And I said, this team doesn't belong. I think New York Rangers were obviously going to plow through probably pretty much whoever they were going to get in that first round because they are just that good. But Washington is a lot like Minnesota. If you think about it, they're old and aging. You know, you've got one guy in Alex Ovechkin who's really your top-notch player. That's your Kirill Kaprizov. If Ovechkin can't get it done, then the team's going to lag behind, right? There's a lot of similarities there where Washington just didn't belong, and that's the reason that they were swept. I mean, the New York Rangers led for the entire series with them. I think Washington only had a lead for 3 minutes and 27 seconds or something absurd like that through all 4 games. Like, Washington just could never get their group going. And that was Minnesota a lot this year too. They trailed all the time, to your point, AJ. Like, I just feel, there's no offense. There's no excitement, guys. There's no excitement from the Minnesota Wild. And I said that on purpose.
Wow. That's, and of course, Ovechkin had 0 points too. Like that's, you know, equivalent of Kaprizov has no points. You're going to lose. And Washington, 1, was not that good. And 2, they expend everything that they had just to make the playoffs. But that brings me to the point that I've learned, and it's not so much learned as just confirmed and driven home. And that is the 1-8 match in the West. Remember, the Wild was vying for the 8th seed, which right now is the Golden Knights. Okay. So it's a marvelous series. It's haymakers continually, but that's, you know, if you were rooting for the Wild to make the playoffs, that's what you wanted, that smoke. You wanted that, you know, as a hockey fan. No, you didn't. You want this, but we can bitch and moan about Mark Stone. Okay. LTIR, which, by the way, the Golden Knights, if nothing else, are just exploiting. It's a league rule. It's not like, I would want my team to do the exact same thing. But more importantly to me, on both sides here, on both sides, I don't think the kids are pleased at all with my point.
They don't. They're talking about meeting more physicality, especially with each other. They're constantly trying to fight for position and attention. And you know what? The Minnesota Wild don't do that very well either. So I get it.
These kids box out in front. It's a war out there for them.
They're not going to get called for goalie interference either while they do it. They're going to get away with it every single time. I love it.
How about John Cooper?
Oof.
John
I don't
Cooper
blame him though.
Until he said put skirts on the goaltenders. That probably is not real smart in 2024, Johnny.
People don't like that. But there was no goaltender interference either. Like, looking back, like that is bogus. Like, Florida was going to beat them anyway, I think. But still, those are turning points. And I was like, that is not. Those are just shots. That's hard net front presence. Like, my goodness, could you imagine Eck getting called for something similar to that? Right? Like, Ridiculous.
The second one, I thought, like, by the second one, he should have, the skater sandwiched himself between Bob and the defenseman. And it's like, dude, you've got to be careful there. Cause like, I think that goal is scored without that, but I don't know. But what I've seen in the Stars Knights series is this from both sides. First of all, haymakers, but second of all, resilience. And this goes back to the Wild's playoff appearances. Forget this dog of a season. When have we seen this from this team? When the Wild gets down in the first round previously, it feels like it's basically just sort of done, right? Like last year, the Star Series got off to a really good start. Wild wins game 1. I think the Stars win game 2. If I'm not mistaken, the Wild won game 3. Is that right? Were they up 2-1?
That sounds right.
Because game 3 was a good game.
Yes.
Game 3 was a good game. And then from then, it just went completely south. But my point being is, like, you have to be prepared from a mentality standpoint. I think you have to be prepared to play series like this. And yes, it takes talent. And yes, the 2023-24 Wild team, or as Jessi said, the Mild team, didn't have that talent. But like this team has had incarnations where they've made the playoffs and had the talent, but they take a punch to their glass jaws and that's it. They just disappear. The Stars easily could have disappeared here. Like they're down 2-rip, disappointing, right? Oh, woe is me. Just go, tail between your legs and go home. That's my biggest thing. And that's where I think the leadership becomes so important. Like there are guys in that room because Dallas has some guys who previously have quit, but I think you get a guy like Jamie Benn who doesn't quit. Like last night, McNabb hits the Dallas rookie and Jamie Benn then smokes McNabb. It's great. That's what you need. So like among the many things, and this is where Bill Guerin, this is where I expect him to thrive. And this is where, dare I say it, I said it about Koivu, I'll say it about Spurge, nice guy. I think your leadership's all wrong here. I think you got nice guys who are productive players. I'm not saying that they should be gone, but if you were in the war, like let's say that the Wild was more talented and Spurgeon was playing, Jessi, and so they're playing the Stars right now, same series. You really think Spurgeon's the guy to wear the C in that series? I mean, Jamie Benn's a badass.
Yeah, I mean, that's always kind of been the knock on Spurge, right? I think the joke was going into this season that I'd heard that the last time Spurgeon got really upset.
Tell Spurgeon to be quiet there. I hear little Spurgeon complaining, and I'm going to tell you right now,
she is a terrorist. She would actually be a great Jamie Benn impressionist, let me tell you. Like, she definitely... This was a good idea, guys. No, I think the joke was last time Spurgeon got mad was when he was declined getting on a roller coaster because the height requirement was too much, right? Yeah. Like maybe that's like that's not in him. I mean, he's been a Lady Byng, I don't want to say finalist, but he's always nominated for that, right? Because he's got no penalty minutes, and that's fine. I think to remind people, I don't think you're asking for the goon by any stretch of the imagination. We need somebody, some sort of response. Even Ryan Reeves couldn't hold that role, right? No. Like it was torturous
Pat
to watch.
Maroon couldn't hold that role.
No,
I'm saying an
as a leader,
Jamie Benn type, ROR type. Mm-hmm. No, I'm saying a player. Like so, yeah, not Revo was fun, but I mean, he's on Toronto now and doing nothing. Right. But no, my point is age. I'm saying I think that this team, if you're going to go through the war of a playoff series, 7, potentially 7, I think that this team is too nice, too soft. And I'm not even saying guys have to be gone. I'm just saying I think you need something that resembles the guy whose jersey is behind Jessi right now. You're not going to find Messier, but that type of we're not backing down against anyone. And by the way, if we're down 2-rip and you want out, then don't come to the ring.
He comes across as a shoulder tapper. And what I mean by that is something might like ruffle his feathers, but he's going to go up and be, excuse me.
Yeah.
Excuse, I need to have a word with you. Oh, geez, man, you can't be doing that, man. Like, no, look at a guy like kind of similar in size, height, Brad Marchand. That guy.
I was just gonna say Marshy, baby.
He's in my notes. Yes,
Marshy.
Sing it.
Brad Marchand he's a pest. He's a rat, but he is a guy that if he's in your team sweater and he's got a C on his chest, he will die if needed for that club.
Correct.
He's going to pull somebody around, whether they're same height, 10 feet tall, doesn't matter. He's going to get in their face, let them know what the problem is. And there's not going to be, excuse me, I need to have a word. No, it's going to be, you're listening to me right now. We're going to have words. This is going to be settled.
Correct.
Jared Spurgeon does not come across as that. Like I said, he's a shoulder tapper. I need somebody that's not a shoulder tapper.
Yep. That's
who I need as the captain of the Minnesota Wild. And that's not a knock on him as a person.
Or player.
Or a player. I think he's very, very talented. He's adjusted well. He's been a great guy for this organization. But when it comes to, like your point, Judd, leadership, I need a guy with a little bit more of an edge, a little bit of somebody a little more blunt, who's not afraid to ruffle feathers, not the shoulder tapper.
Yep.
And frankly, I think you need somebody that has that playoff experience, right? I mean, you look at, like, I'm picturing in my head now, even old time, like Jerome McGinley or somebody like that that's been through those trenches, right? And like, not only are they the grizzled vet, and sure, they might be on obviously that older side of their career, but they've been there, man. Like, they know exactly what it is to take. That's what ROR's been through, right? Even Marshy's been through that. I think, yeah, you need that FU, but you need that experience, that deep playoff experience. And that's not Spurgeon's fault entirely, right? That's just the Wild's team not making it far enough for those experiences to have. But
what I love about AJ's point, I think it was Ray Ferraro on the ESPN telecast a couple nights ago during the Bruins and Leafs brought this up, and it's that when Marchand scores, he looks like he's more pissed off than before he scored. Like he literally isn't happy about it. And like, that's the playoffs. There's this every year. It's weird. For us, the playoffs are fun. They're great to watch. But there's this weird thing like that the playoffs are supposed to be fun for players. Like, you watch the way that the Wolves play right now. That's not fun. Like they're practicing, they're playing defense, but that's, nobody when they're on, when you're a kid out at recess or something, or on the backyard and you score a goal, that's the Game 7 Stanley Cup winning goal. But you don't practice going into the corners and beating up on your friends, which is what the playoffs are, So like it's not, and yes, the Wild, I just feel like the Wild has never gotten that right. And I also don't think that you can go out and get a guy at the deadline and then be like, now we're going to follow you. I think it's a season long thing. Because didn't the Leafs, in fact, it came through here. The Leafs got Ryan O'Reilly from St. Louis last year because he got traded here. And then we shipped him to the Leafs or picked up salary. But the point is, it didn't work. Why? Why didn't it work? Because they tried to get him at the last second. Like, you can't come in and take over a room. But what we're seeing now is, and Age is right. Marchand, who's a little guy, but the perfect little pest, and he's always pissed off. So, all right, let's talk about the Calder finalists. But before we do, Age, if you have the ability to, let's give a quick shout out to our new partners at Nicolay Law. Nicolay Law knows that when you or a loved one gets injured, ordinary life, it can come to a stop and things can get complicated during that time. Insurance companies are likely to pressure you. They're no fun. They don't care if you get better. They don't care if your medical bills are piling up, and they don't care that you may not be able to work. But Nicolay Law, guess what? They do. They've seen every play the insurance companies have. They'll drop their gloves. You see, that's what they do. They go in the corners and drop their gloves to make sure you get the compensation you deserve after an accident. So if you've been injured, get Minnesota's local award-winning injury lawyers. Get Nicolay. Start your path to winning at nicolaylaw.com or give them a call, 1-855-NICOLAY. That's nicolaylaw.com, NICOLET. Calder Trophy finalists are out. Connor Bedard, no surprise. Brock Faber, no surprise. Luke Hughes, 9 goals, 47 points. First round pick by the New Jersey Devils. First question before we get into Brock. Jessi Pierce, did Marco Rossi get snubbed? 82 games, impressive. 21 goals, 19 assists, 40 points. So 7 fewer points than Hughes. I did feel like because Brock was so by far and away the Wild's best rookie this season, that Rossi in a pretty impressive year, was slept on completely.
Yeah, I mean, I don't think it's fair to say snubbed because actually I have another rookie that I think was snubbed, and that's Luke Evangelista out of Nashville. I think he had a heck of a year. I mean, 54 points, I want to say. Luke Hughes to me was a surprise, though. Like, yes, I know he had a good year, and yes, New Jersey was having a good season for a bit there. It looked like they were going to get things together, and then they kind of went all Jersey on everybody. So, yeah, I wouldn't say Marco was snubbed. I do think in general, he didn't get the fanfare. He didn't generate the attention because everybody was looking at Brock. And that is unfortunate because everybody here locally knows the work that Marco Rossi put in to have the season that he did. And he absolutely deserves some of that recognition. But I don't know that it's enough to warrant having him be a finalist. Again, if Brock didn't exist, I'm sure Marco is right there in that conversation. But unfortunately for Marco, and fortunately for us Minnesotans, Brock Faber does exist and did, in fact, do everything that he could this year. So I'm not going to say snubbed, but I do wish that Marco Rossi had gotten a little bit more attention than maybe he did, just in general across the league, because I think he did have a very good season and, quiet nationally. Locally we knew it, but elsewhere they didn't.
Sure. Age, what do you think?
Yeah, snubbed maybe is not the right word. I think he's probably on that bubble of like consideration. Like if there was the honorable mentions, he's probably 4 or 5, along with I think Evangelista, to Jesse's point. But it's kind of apples to oranges in a sense, because you had a guy, Luke Hughes, who he played 82 games, and I believe a lot of them for the Devils was on that top defensive pairing. He was averaging 21 over 21 minutes a night. On the other side of things, Marco Rossi was like mid 15, almost to 16. So there's about a 5.5 minute difference between those two guys. So that's the one argument maybe I would give in favor of Rossi. Is like he did relatively close of production just in lesser time. But I don't know. It comes down to the marketability, I think, in a sense too. You have to factor that in because he's playing kind of second fiddle to Jesse's point, like to a Brock Faber. And if he was on another team, like I think we like to say Minnesota is a great hockey market, but if he was on a team like the Toronto Maple Leafs, oh my God, we would not be able to stop hearing about this kid. Oh, Marco Rossi up in Toronto, him and Pappy in the
Montreal.
6.
Oh, Pappy.
Him and Paps.
Oh my God, yeah.
They could get on the golf course together.
Golfing yet?
Kind of an unfortunate situation for him, but yeah, given how close we all follow the team, what we know about Marco Rossi, it feels like he didn't really get his flowers, but hopefully the spin zone here is that's going to fuel him even more. You've seen how much work he's put in to get to this point. I think he's the guy that might take this in stride and say, you know what, that just tells me I need to be better. I need to improve, especially with possible trade rumors circulating.
Yeah.
That's only going to drive him. So, you know what, maybe it's going to be a good thing in the long run.
I was going to say it fuels him right into another team is what you're saying.
I'm getting afraid of this. Yeah, he might have a chance to join Pap in Toronto at the rate that, because, I mean, I've seen that too. Russo and Joe Smith have been writing about the potential. I would hate to see that at this point. But so the question is this. Connor Bedard, 68 games. He did miss double-digit games with that broken jaw. 22 goals, which tied for the Hawks team lead. And he led rookies with 22 goals, tied for the rookie lead with Faber, 39 assists, point total led 61, led rookies. But, and I don't buy into this stat a lot unless it's really good or really bad. Minus 44.
Say it. Plus minus matters, Judd.
Plus minus matters. Well,
minus matters.
If he's like a -5 or a +5, it's like I don't really care. But and look, the Hawks are a dumpster fire. It's not all his fault, but nonetheless, those were the circumstances. Brock Faber, 8 goals, tied for the rookie lead, 39 assists, 47 points, 82 games, and he was 5th in the entire league in minutes per game at 24.58. And if you want to throw in the plus minus stat for him, -1. Bedard's got the name, the pedigree, but we've seen this before where the guy with the name does not win this award. I'm hard pressed to see, unless you totally mail it in, how you don't vote for Brock here. And I mean, I say that as a guy that, like all of us, covers this team. but I don't think this show is filled with homers, and I don't see how you don't come away. I mean, he was 5th in the league. We're talking about guys like, Drew Doughty. We're talking about guys that log ice time. Spurgeon was out. Like, if you look at the circumstances of what Faber did, and both teams are non-playoff teams, so it's a wash. Nobody helped their team get to the playoffs. I think this has to go down with a list of guys who went on to Hall of Fame careers who did not win this award, and that is, and the dog agrees with me, Connor Bedard out, Brock Faber in, chaos at the Pierce household.
It's constant chaos at the
you're
Pierce
a mom.
household.
It's fine. It's fine. We just appreciate your time.
And you know what it is? It's a mailman. Like, literally just the most
My dog goes
small
nuts,
inconvenience. Like,
Yeah.
get real.
You know
get
what?
real.
You know what? It's fine. We muck it up. We dump and chase this show hard at work. But
That's the thing.
I think it's
Brock Faber.
It has to be Brock Faber, in my opinion, guys.
He's got that dog in him, like maybe that's what we were indicating back
Well, he
here.
looks like
no, I mean, it's tough, right? Connor Bedard's the flashy guy. He's the fun guy. He did have an absolutely tremendous year even after breaking his jaw, right? I mean, he is all that they've billed him to be, which is exciting. But as I always go back to, Connor McDavid did not win the Calder his rookie year, and that hasn't stopped him from moving on, as you'd mentioned, Judd.
Mike Modano didn't.
Yeah, I mean, it happens. I think what's most impressive is you look at the players that Brock was put up against and the people that he was capable of shutting down, not to mention how he led the rookies in both average minutes, which was 2458, and total, which was 2,047 time on ice, which is nearly 300 more minutes than the next closest player. I mean, it's just ungodly numbers for TOI, and I think that needs to be taken into consideration. Just again, as you'd mentioned, Judd, it's not that either team went far, neither team had a lot of success, but Brock Faber's importance to the Minnesota Wild is hugely instrumental. Like, I just don't think you can question that. And I think he deserves this award, and that's putting all bias aside. I think it's hard to argue. But again, he's a defenseman. He's not Connor Bedard. So I think that's,
to me, it's more
the
impressive.
Uphill battle. It is. It's 100% more impressive.
If I vote, that's more impressive.
Yeah. But you have people that just love Connor Bedard, and they love what he was able to execute. And maybe, unfortunately for Brock, I don't know how many people follow the Minnesota Wild. Everybody kind of kept eyes on Chicago because Connor Bedard was there, right? There's this resurgence of the Blackhawks maybe getting it together. I mean, maybe that plays in because, again, it's voted by our peers, if you will, and it's, it's up to them to choose it. So I think it's going to be a very tight race. I do think. I don't think it's heavily contested. I think it's between those two for sure. No discredit to Luke Hughes, but I think it'll come down just a couple votes that'll sway one way or another. I hope it's Brock. I just realistically, it's a tough hill.
And to the point about the plus minus, this is like the one scenario where I'm going to take that with a little more weight than normal, just because of the amount of ice time that Brock Faber played on a team that didn't make the playoffs. They're bad. They're a bad hockey team. -1 is incredible. -1 is incredible. Also, I don't know if this can be factored in. The guy was playing with fractured ribs for 2 months.
Yeah, factor it in.
I didn't even bring that up.
I said this to Judd. I know jaw, ribs, completely different. But being in the lineup for all of those games, playing for all of that time and having that production while also having the defensive stats. And I know there's not like a defensive clears stat that goes into this voting. You have to factor that in. I understand that you're going to watch these flashy highlights and you're going to see Bedard go coast to coast and he's going to dazzle and he's going to dangle and he's going to go top net, bar down, whatever. It's like Mike Trout highlights. Guess what? That was a 500-foot home run. They're losing by 7. Who cares? Same thing with this Bedard kid. That was a great backhand goal, wrap around Michigan, under the legs, whatever. They're losing by 4 in the first. Let's relax a little bit. The valuable here is what he did for this team. Without them, or without Brock Faber, this Wild club is probably battling for Celebrini in the lottery. And it's not even close.
Yeah.
It would be Sharks, Blackhawks, Wild, right there at the top. Brock Faber took them from bottom of the toilet bowl to right on the rim. They're not out of it. They still missed the playoffs, but without him, they are absolute garbage.
I'm with you. And plus, yeah, like he should have been, by all rights, a -25 or worse.
Right.
And the fact that he did this without Spurgeon and clear cut now is the best defenseman on a team with Brodin. Like that's the other thing too. Brodin's still a hell of a player, and Brock Faber is now a better player, I think, in the view of many people that know exactly what they're watching. Back to Jessi's point too. So in June of 2016, McDavid was actually third in the Calder that year. Artemi Panarin, who was a veteran, won it for the Blackhawks. Shane Gostisbehere, the Ghost. Philadelphia, he was second and McDavid was third. So, you know what? McDavid, Hall of Famer. Bedard eventually, probably a superior career. Who knows to Brock? I don't know. I don't care. But yeah, last thing. Word comes out today, I believe, or yesterday. Anyway, within the last couple of days, Danila Yurov is not going to be coming over to play for the Wild next season. Jessi, you saw him at the prospect camp last year, 2022 first round pick, led his team in the KHL this season in goals and points, 21 and 49 in 62 games, 6 playoff goals as well. Clearly a very nice career, it looks like, either at center or wing in front of him. A good or bad thing or indifferent thing that he will not be here for 24-25?
Right now, I'm kind of indifferent. It did surprise me a little bit because in speaking with him at development camp last year, he seemed very sure and very confident that I will be here. Yeah, like he said to us directly, well, yeah, we'll be here next year. I mean, didn't feel like lip service by any stretch of the imagination. Now, I know they won the cup over there, which was a very big deal in the KHL, and he's very excited about that. But I think it's interesting because if he had come over, I think he's in the lineup. I don't think there was anybody necessarily standing in his way. But also it's not something that I can't wait another year for. I don't foresee this turning into a Kirill situation where we're looking 4 or 5 years down the road. I think he does genuinely want to be in the NHL, and maybe he just feels he has some sort of unfinished business there, which again seems odd considering you just won it all. So it would have been the perfect transition. But yeah, I'm indifferent on it. I think it's another year. It's raining outside as well. The sky's not falling though. In case you guys weren't
meteorologists.
Aware. I do. I lied. I told you I tried to lock him outside. It rained on him, so now it's probably bad.
Dawn's
parenting.
mom used to do exactly that. She's still sort of scarred by it, so I do not suggest that at all.
Yeah, I told him I'd give him all $1.
She talks about it to this day.
Yeah, that's
$1.
I told him I'd give him $1, which is a lot of money to 5-year-olds and 4-year-olds and
2024. It ain't a lot to anybody.
Times are hard. In this economy, times are hard.
Well, that's because your cheap husband broke down and got cable and Wi-Fi, and now times are hard. But we thank Mike for that.
Yes, he's out of town, so we can't thank him entirely. He's gone, so we're single-handedly handing.
Yeah, but your connection's crystal clear, and that's all we care about.
Crystal clear. That's why we get to watch hockey. That's why kids are so angry watching hockey all the time.
Exactly right.
But no, to sum it up, indifferent. I think it'll be fine. I anticipate then, since it's not this year, it will be next year. Calm down. We still have Liam Ogren here. You still have Marat. I mean, you have guys that are excited to be part of the organization. It won't turn into anything hostile, I don't think, with Yurov.
Age, final thought on this.
Yeah, I mean, maybe there was some doubt that for whatever reason he wouldn't make the team out of camp. I'm not sure what door would be standing in his way in that aspect, but I from my understanding too, like there's some like behind the scenes politics type of stuff that happens over in this Russian hockey world that we don't know a whole lot about at times. So maybe somebody said, "Hey, well, we can't wait to have you back." And he goes, "What do you mean? My contract's up." And they said, "Can't wait to have you back. Yeah. Looking forward to next year." He said, "Okay, sounds good. If that's what I'm doing, for sure." Yes. So one more year, it's fine. And plus, it's not like next year was going to be like the make or break. They need him type of thing. They shouldn't be, for instance, making any push next year to like make a cup run or anything of that nature. He'll enter the frame a little bit later in this new era of Wild hockey, and it's going to be at a time where they have a little more cash to splash, which is just fine. And by that time, Kirill's going to be hopefully thinking about re-signing. Husnudinov is fully acclimated. You can add another Russian to the fold, and all of a sudden, Minnesota Wild up and coming, surging.
Well, that's what I thought. So two thoughts. One is the only thing I don't like is that he's staying home. and I'm with you. Like Russia's weird. Like if I can get a guy out, I want him out as quickly as possible, and preferably I don't want him to go home. Like the whole thing with Kirill. I want to go home. No, dude, I don't want you going home. Sorry about that.
I was gonna say my fear there is that there's going to be a steep decline in ice time for him. Do not stint any type of growth or development. That's my biggest. That's my biggest thing.
You still got a war going on too. Like there's just a lot of stuff I don't want you around. But yes, that's a good point because when you go into the last year, there's a steep decline in ice time, and then sometimes you get traded like to Siberia, and that's not fun. The other thing I wonder though is I wonder if he stayed there because of the threat of ice time here, and here's why. Now, it makes sense that if he was here, he would play. That being said, I'm looking at a list of the top 5 prospects, and like this team does have guys. Like this is, I continue to say, I think 24 or I think 25, 26, the future is bright. Wallstedt is the top prospect I see. Yurov is second. Liam Ogren is still third, but he's here now. Riley Height from Prince George, who scored 37 goals and had 80 assists in 66 games. He's fourth, and it sounds like he's got a chance to make this team. And then Marat is 5. And this is where the contracts become a problem. You got guys you probably can't offload. I wonder if part of this is if Height's going to make this team, and look, we all would love to just move old guys aside, but I don't know that you can with all of them. So unfortunately, I wonder if this comes down to somewhat, Jessi, of an ice time problem. Like you literally have guys you can't move.
Right. There's probably
you can't tell Matt, hey, sorry, dude, you ain't playing.
Yeah.
Unless I can get him to sign off on a trade.
That's probably something that was considered again, but I do feel like he's a guy that you make room for and you make room in the top for it, right? Like I don't care what that looks like or how you do it. I just think I think the more you guys talked about the future, maybe that seems to be probably a very mitigating thing. Like, I don't really want to go to a team that's not going to be that good. Why don't I just wait another year when you guys have some money to kind of build around me and yada, yada. I mean, it gives Bill Guerin another year to figure out some of those contracts that he signed if he wants to move them too. I don't know. I'm sure, again, that's a small factor for him, but the more I think about I don't want to go to a very mediocre squad for my first year. I think that, at least for me, would be a very deciding factor in going back to a winning team.
Because you've got, 12 spots, right? Because the kids that we're talking about here, you do not want them playing fourth line.
Right.
So, there's basically 12 spots. Ideally, top 6. But, they've got guys. So, anyway, I still contend the future is bright. I'm with Age. I'm not in love with staying in Russia, but it is what it is. Jessi, thank you much. Take care of those kids. I'm glad the cable is firing.
Can we just keep it going though? Like, the bedtime's soon. It's so soon.
What time is bedtime?
8:00.
All at the same time?
All at the same time. They do it. I blessed in the fact that I can get them all down at once. It's a wonderful thing.
Covers
Ever
the
since they
chin.
were babies. Yes.
Really? See, the oldest one to me, I'd bitch about that.
Nope, it's just they all go down.
I'd want it to be at least 9:30 if I was the...
And he can tell time too. Nope, we're all down. We go to bed. We shut our mouths. Mommy watches hockey.
We shut our mouths. And that's why your kids all think that mommy's living is made, and they're not entirely wrong.
They're not totally wrong.
Watching the great sport of hockey. All right, guys. Jessi, AJ, Judd, we'll see you soon.